Hi, Samuel. Thank you so much for joining us on Bliss Business. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Ashish. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on Blitz Business.
Awesome. Let's get started. So, Samuel, uh, tell us some fun things about yourself first. We were discussing you have dogs. What else you like to do?
So my name is Samuel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Huntr. Um, I started my journey working for the Emirates Group, and then I started Huntr, and I became an advisor to the World Bank and United Nations because of my work with Huntr, especially. I'd love also my hobbies are I love doing woodcraft. I love singing. I was a musician back in the day as well. I love to read a lot of business books, especially. And I love to travel also with my wife. I'm a newlywed in the sense that I'm 2 years into marriage, but I consider myself as a newlywed, still learning about marriage and work and balancing both of them at the same time. So yeah.
I think we can talk about business later. Let's talk about what marriage tips you want to give to our listeners since you are in the newlywed category.
I'm probably not an expert at that field. I'm still learning, but I do believe that it is very important because marriage is. I would say marriage comes first and family comes first before work and before business. Especially, it's very important to spend time with your spouse. It's very important to schedule those time, especially during the weekends, and to travel with them, and just to be a supporting spouse as well to them. So especially when business is not doing well, all of those, that's when a lot of problems arise. And if you're spending good quality time with your wife, I think she's gonna understand. If rather, if you're like focused on business all the time, if you focus on work all the time, it gets to a point where when problems arise, that's when problems at home also arise, and obviously it's gonna affect work and business. I would say spending quality time, learning the love language of your spouse, whether it's quality time, whether it's gifts, whether it's words of affirmation, those are really important. And putting your spouse also, all of everything else is, I believe, is a very, very important, especially when you're doing business, because when you're doing business, there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's very fluctuating. So very important for the work-life balance.
So, how are you managing marriage and business at the same time?
I think I am more intentional now in terms of there are seasons when it comes to work. There is a culture of hustle and grind when it comes to startup. I do believe it's true, but I also do think that there is a lot of too much focus into the hustle and grind aspect of things. And so I believe there are seasons where you need to hustle and grind, and then when there are better seasons, I think that the balance is really important. And there are seasons with regards to marriage also where you need to focus a lot more on the marriage than the work. And so understanding that season and understanding those periods and working accordingly, and also having a very clear communication with your spouse as well, is very important, like to ensure that she knows what is going on. And at this point of time, mentioning if the work is not, or if you need to hustle and grind, and you need to let her know that this is the season for that, and be very open and transparent about it, and mention that the next couple of months are going to be really, really busy, and so we may not have the kind of time which we normally spend. And so during the other times, when things are better, it's good to like probably travel with your wife, get out of the whole, the mundane things and the mundane environment, and explore new places. And also when you travel is when you discover a lot about your spouses as well, also during your daily walk with her as well. But try to manage both in that way.
So, currently, what season are you in, Samuel?
I think currently, right now, we are in a season where we need to hustle and grind. So I've already told the next couple of months are crucial. There would be late night work. There would be a lot of late night, midnight, early morning work type situations. Yeah, so be prepared for that. But she knows, she has gone through the fluctuations, so she knows, and she knows that it's not forever as well.
So at Hunter, so what are you now? What are you? So tell us a little bit about Hunter first, then we'll dive deeper into it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Huntr is a migrant worker marketplace that helps large enterprises which have about 3,000 employees to over 100,000 plus employees hire workers, especially overseas workers, by aggregating service providers and training organizations, service providers such as training organizations, government organizations, and recruitment agencies and institutions which have large amount of blue collar workers. We aggregate them and we empower both sides with technology. So the interviewing, the shortlisting, all of that happens through our platforms, and also the onboarding happens through our platform. So we started as a marketplace, and then our natural progression was to go on to build a SaaS platform which takes care of the entire onboarding. And I believe because the data flows through our app, we also are into supply chain forecasting as well, building pipelines and providing strategic insights and an action plan for the blue collar manpower supply chain for large enterprises. So that's essentially what we do.
So you mentioned overseas. So you're helping Indian company hire overseas blue collar workers. So I didn't understand.
Yeah, so we have the marketplace, right? So we have the demand and supply. On the demand side, we specifically currently are focused on the Middle East market. And by Middle East, I'm talking about UAE and Saudi specifically. Predominantly, we actually started with the UAE market and with large enterprises in the UAE market. Our typical ICP would be manpower supply companies because they hire in huge volumes. So they hire, let's say, 300, 400, 500, some even hire 1,000 people per month on a monthly basis, recurring basis. So we support such companies, and there are also direct companies as well, not just manpower companies, but logistics companies like Amazon, for example, which hires in huge volume. There are airports which hires in huge volumes. So typically, companies which have a very large volume of workers and they hire very high amount of or high volume of workers, and they hire specifically from Asia and Africa. That's India being one of the largest market actually, especially for specific skill set such as construction skill sets or skilled trades such as electrician, plumbers, masons, all these type of skill set. And you have, for example, soft FM, hard FM. For the facility management, you have housekeeping, you have healthcare. So typically those type of industries and large volume.
Understood. So Samuel, tell us in terms of so what led you to this path? This was your experience. You wanted to started this thing, or it was an idea. So I'm trying to understand what sort of led you to build this thing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody kind of like would one day jump in and or wake up and be like, I want to build a high volume recruiting business and technology for that, right? It's a very specific industry. So I would say that I had an unfair advantage working for Emirates, and I led large digital transformation projects for Emirates. And I firsthand saw of how Emirates was hiring migrant blue collar workers on a large volume scale. And so I discovered the way in which the blue collar workers were being hired, and I also noted that it was not just Emirates, but other companies in the Middle East were hiring in the same way. And then I discovered that it's not just a Middle East kind of a way of hiring, but it's also happens in Singapore, it happens in Malaysia, it happens in Japan. And now we also seeing a lot of influx of blue collar workers being migrated to Europe as well. And so yeah, this is a global way of hiring. And so I initially discovered while working for a large enterprise.
So it was your experience which sort of led you. You had already built that expertise over the years, and you wanted to extend over and do it.
Yes, it was my work experience which kind of led me to that. And then as I progressed in my career, World Bank also reached out as well to help their young advisory group called YAG in solutions for youth employment, especially for providing youth employment in Africa. And so a lot of workshops in that, a lot of meetings over there, and especially in terms of the work that we do and also seeing what others are doing, when it comes to that aspect of things as well. I'm part of other professional groups as well, which are also linked to the work that we are doing. But primarily, yes, it started with my previous work experience, and that's how I discovered how what we are building actually.
So now let's get deeper into this. So there are
Yeah.
many articles or news clipping or even on Insta or social media about workers' condition, especially in Dubai, UAE, or, in Middle East. It's
Yeah.
very prominent. Many documentaries have come out in terms of keeping passports, etc., etc. The working condition are terrible. If I can recall correctly, it was like what, $4 an hour, something that sort of pay scale um, for such jobs. So, what is the current scenario and what is the reality on ground since you're from the segment?
Yeah, I think back in the day, especially Dubai being a very new city, and especially a lot of infrastructure being invested, and still there's a lot of infrastructure being built in the city. But you can say that UAE was probably one of the earliest place to kind of take advantage of being in the middle and being having great access to Asia and Africa, and laws were pretty much being built at that point of time. And so uh, there were a lot of companies which were hiring workforce, and in that there were also a lot of not so great companies as well hiring a large amount of workforce. And so I guess specifically, typically, companies which were not probably well run or with not a great management were hiring in also large volume of workforce, and they were put into working conditions which are not great, salaries which are also not great, and obviously that led to problems, and that led to a lot of news and articles being put out on international media. But Dubai and UAE, especially, I would say, is unlike in the other countries. They are very fast in terms of developing policies, developing laws, and also they are very concerned about protecting the vulnerable people. And so, over the period of time, they have developed a lot of laws in terms of protecting the labor workforce as well. They have brought in embassies from other countries to ensure that there is a fixed wage, or this is the lowest wage, and there are certain criteria that need to be met when it comes to accommodation, when it comes to food being provided, when it comes to the wages, when it comes to overtime. Such, if those things are not met, there are very strong laws against people who kind of break those laws. And so that was one of the measures. And I guess a lot of the embassies have also come in and enforced that as well. Embassies of different countries have enforced that as well, and large enterprises have to now comply with the certain laws as well. So specifically, especially branded organizations or organizations which are reputed in nature in the UAE, they are well known. Like, for example, CSR. During my period of time, I've seen of how CSR budgets have grown because the government has have put a big emphasis on CSR budgets, on ensuring the workforce, the quality of accommodation centers. I've seen of how the accommodation centers have transformed over a period of time. And nowadays the accommodation facilities look like cities, a mini city, where some of them I've seen have basketball courts, they have gyms, they have facilities which are pretty good facilities. The companies have welfare team to ensure that the people's needs are met. And so there are, if you're a large enterprises, if you're a reputed enterprise, and especially if you want to win big contracts, you have to follow such regulations. There are enterprises which are probably, like, they are not very well known in the market, and they are not run in a great fashion. So we basically do not work with such organizations. We have certain criterias which we keep in order to work with, and so we work with reputed organizations who have certain level of accommodation, certain wages which are provided, and food and transportation and insurance and medicals and all of those which are being provided. And so we're aggregating those type of demands in
So,
the market.
understood. So, Samuel, help us understand in terms of what is the pay scale we are looking at, like how much someone earns, someone is going from here to UAE. for particular jobs? Like what is the pay scale we are looking?
So I would say typically their accommodations are covered. A lot of their costs are taken care of. Most of the companies, again, it depends on the criteria of the work that they do, but most of the companies they provide food as well. So accommodation is covered, food is covered, the transportation costs are covered. We are working with companies who provide insurance and visas, and they are not deducted from the employees and all that, because there are companies which deduct those and we do not work with them. So my point is, a lot of those aspects are covered for the employee, and so the employee doesn't have to pay for such things. And so when they receive a salary, most of it is savings, and they get to send that money back to their home country. So typically their starting salary would be like 30,000 for like 25,000 to 30,000 for an unskilled workforce category. And so, and as they are more skilled, obviously the salary keeps increasing to like 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, and so on and so forth. And so and most of their salary, they're able to save that money, and they're able to send that money back home because all of their costs are typically covered by the enterprise.
Understood. What is your business model? Is it the traditional one? You take 8.33% or 1 month salary, or how is it? How are you making money?
Yeah, typically what we do is we take 1 month, and we have the marketplace which takes 1 month. We have a SaaS platform which start with the $5,000 per month. That's for the onboarding, and it differs based on the size of the company as well. Yeah, $5,000 per month for using our SaaS platform to take care of the onboarding process. The pricing really depends on the size of the company. And we also have a supply chain forecasting, building pipeline, and simulating demand. Because the data flows through our app, we are able to, and we are doing different types of demand where we have a lot of information into the demand. We have a lot of information into the supply side as well, because we are service providers all across Asia and Africa. We have a scraping tool which kind of like takes a lot of the jobs from the competitors, and data about that, and data about what are the jobs available in the market, and some of the global geopolitical situation which are happening. And so we're able to like simulate a certain uh, demand, and what those supply looks like, what those pipelines look like, and we're able to create those pipelines and what those timelines look like as well. So for that, again, it's more of a custom pricing.
What is the salary trend right now? What are you seeing in the market? Like, what are the jobs coming up more versus previously what you have seen?
Yeah, a good question. So back in the day, we were seeing, for example, I mean, it differs according to different seasons, right? I guess we started right after COVID, and when we started right after COVID, our focus at that point in time was healthcare workers, because the nurses were highly demanded. And you would have probably heard of how India sent a lot of nurses across into the Middle East. And so we did a lot, we brought in a lot of nurses at that point of time into the Middle East, especially for hospitals, for clinics, universities, schools, the government. And then we moved on from there to, and the typical market category usually was the unskilled labor. That means the construction workers and all those categories. But we've seen a shift in terms of from the unskilled labor, like the construction workers, the cleaners, and all that, to more of a skilled workforce. And you can see the reason why is because Abu Dhabi has invested 120 billion dirham into the country to build up manufacturing, and as a result, a lot of the skilled workforce, the requirements have increased. And this is also partly because, actually not partly, majorly because a lot of the countries have moved away from China and starting to do manufacturing. India has benefited a lot, especially from countries like the West moving away from China and moving their manufacturing to India. And in the same way, there are some local businesses which are government funded businesses, manufacturing businesses which are based in the UAE, which are highly funded, and they're also pretty well known in the global space as well. And they've received a lot of funding from the government. There are new companies which are established, which has brought in a lot of skilled people requirements as a result. That's one sector. And then we also seen agri-tech. So the UAE has also focused on agriculture workers, but specifically with combination of technology to develop the soil, and the soil in Dubai has been changing, or the UAE has been changing. It's no longer a desert, not completely a desert anymore, and a lot of the deserts have been turned into agriculture farmland, and UAE intends to be be self-sustaining with agriculture, but also to export a lot of the agriculture which is cultivated in the country. So we have seen a lot of agriculture workers being also that trend also coming into play. Apart from that, we have also seen increase in female workforce as well. Naturally, like it has been always the male workforce, and and there are certain industries where female workers have been dominated and male workers have been dominated, and we've seen a shift in those categories. For example, in the skilled trades, it's usually dominated by male, but we have also seen of how females are being focused on the construction sector, which is not usually the case, right? And we also seen like female workforce, typically it's usually housekeeping or receptionist or front facing roles, or healthcare workers specifically dominated by female worker category. But we have seen a change into the skill category where the females are dominating, and so there's a lot of interesting trends going on. But I would probably highlight these, which are the main.
So it's basically manufacturing, agri-tech, a lot of skilled workers kicking in due to the investments in women.
Yes,
Uh,
construction, manufacturing, agriculture, these are probably the rising industry trends.
so till now, Samuel, everything sounds very rosy, right? So what are the challenges in this business? What do you deal with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think our journey itself was a bit challenging in the beginning itself, and there are challenges even now, but challenges changes over time, and the more.
Season
Yeah, sorry.
depends on the season.
Yeah, it depends on the season, exactly. There were times when probably in the beginning, my challenge at that point of time was we didn't have a product as such at that point of time. In fact, we created a two-sided marketplace where we help enterprises connect with blue collar workers directly. That didn't really work out. We didn't find a product market fit, and so we went back to the drawing board. And that at that point of time, I wouldn't say we, like it was just me and probably my co-founder at that point of time. And so I remember. But I did have the network coming from Emirates. I did have the network. I do have the network for the demand side, and it's a chicken and egg situation with the marketplace, right? What comes first? Is it the demand or the supply? And I guess again that depends on the period which you're in, but the initial phase definitely in a job market situation is the demand side. And so I reached out to my connections with the from a demand perspective, and found out a couple of jobs. And on the other side, we had a supply side where we connected with people in the local market, especially the ones who came with a offer letter into the country, but these are typically fake offer letters, or they've been exploited and they ended up in the airport for 2-3 days without, they've been stranded in the airport. And I found those people again. And I used to remember I used to drive from the airport, taking the people in my car, and would go to the interview location, and you try to.
Please,
Huh?
where were you?
In Dubai.
In Dubai.
Yeah, I used to drive them to the interview location, and till they got a job, I used to do that. But I learned a lot through that process. And then back to the drawing board, we kind of like mapped out that entire what that process looks like. And so we did a lot of work manually at that point in time. So everything. And I was kind of like, I was the CEO of a company, but I was also the driver, I was also the PRO, I was also everything. And that gave a lot of experience and learning, and went back to the drawing board and mapped out that entire process and looked at what that process looks like and built technology solutions on top of it, basically. So that was probably the challenge at that period of time, and then limited amount of funding also at that point in time. And so I was basically self-funded and bootstrapped, put in all my money at that point in time. And so obviously like have to be very scrappy and very resourceful with the kind of budget which I have. And so did a lot of manual work in the beginning. And so that had its own challenges at that point in time. And now we are in a different season, different period. We have a team, we have customers, we have product, we have service providers, we have a whole lot of other things. And we have all like some amount of resources, and we are tackling it in a completely different way at this point of time. But the challenges is also in terms of we have different types of challenges now. We have competitors who kind of know us and trying to sabotage our work, and so we have a lot of competitors who are probably unorganized in the sector, and they threaten us in different types of ways. That
Those ways.
uh yeah, so we've seen situations where, for example, we've seen situations where they have somebody on the take in government, and they block out the legal procedure, because we work everything legally, and we work ensure that things are done legally, and there's a particular set of legal procedures to hiring high volume manpower, especially, and from the home country and from the hiring country as well. And so we ensure those are things which are checked, and we have digitally also built some tools to ensure that those are also fast tracked. But we have seen where things such as those get hindered because they have some level of contacts in areas, and they block out or delay the process as a result, and try to give us a bad reputation and all of those things. Also kind of focusing that we are new in this, because these guys are legacy players. They have been in the space for decades, and so they want to like throw out light on or spotlight us, saying that we are new in the space, we don't have that kind of experience that we do, and hence the delay is happening, and all those type of those type of scenarios which happens as a result. We have had people who are potential lead, where they've gone into the business and everything is worked out, and we are onboarding them, and in the middle things stop because their existing supplier got some information that we have approached them, and so they again say things like, for example, they are not a recruitment agency, so they don't have the kind of experience that we do, and all of those things, and they'll just waste your time. They are not able to fill your requirements, and all of those things typically we have seen as challenges when it comes to in this particular space. And both in the hiring country as well as the sending country, we have encountered such challenges. But yeah, we have overcome these challenges by really like focusing on quality, focusing on what we promise the clients, especially. And also, we have gone to people who understand what we are doing, and probably on upper level management in the government, or like in the client side of things as well. And we really delivered in terms of what we promised, and in terms of what a comparison of output, they have seen changes, and they've obviously like and from a client side, I would say, they always provide us with the most challenging situation, and they always give us their most complex countries and the most complex projects to crack, which they have never been able to crack prior. And so they expect us to fail, and so if we fail, okay, fine, we're not gonna work with you. And so we have been laser focused in terms of ensuring that we don't fail, and we find out ways in terms of which we can deliver. And so we have delivered, and as a result, we have very long term relationship with these clients as a result. So yeah, so these are probably some of the challenges. I can go on about challenges. There are challenges, I guess, with businesses. Every businesses there are challenges, but it's all about I guess with business, it's a massive mountain, right? And you're constantly having to climb the different mountains of challenges which comes in, and it's all about problem solving and all about overcoming them. Because most businesses fail at the end of the day, and especially technology startups actually like fail at the end of the day. And it's all about just as an entrepreneur, it's about having the right mindset, being positive, and also, but at the same time, having a reality check on what's happening and trying to find the right solution for these problems and overcoming them. Yeah, so I think that right mindset is really important, especially when there are challenges, because yeah, there are so many challenges. The minute you decide to become an entrepreneur, the whole world goes upside down. It's not rosy. It's a lot of challenges, but it's the right, I would say, the mindset is key in business.
Was there any reason, Samuel, to go for building a SaaS product? Because as you mentioned, right, the legacy player has been there for very long, and I assume they are doing it very ad hoc way,
Yeah.
because like quote unquote as a recruitment agency, and the processes are sort of in that fashion. So was there any reason to position yourself as a SaaS player versus a recruitment company? I mean, in terms of valuation, yes, it helps, but anything else, or what was the thought process?
It also depends on the type of the burning requirements for the clients and what they need at the end of the day. So probably we see the marketplace as at the end of the day a go to market strategy, I would say, compared to what our vision is. Our vision is not the marketplace. Our vision actually is on the data and data analytics, and on in terms of having all the data and being able to simulate demand, able to forecast supply, and creating pipelines. There is no particular, you have Palantir technologies for the supply chain, for especially for logistics. They started in the defense contracting space and they moved on to logistics, and especially in the supply chain space. But they don't do data analytics for example, for the manpower requirements. So that our vision is on the being the data analytics platform and having a lot of data in the manpower space, because the blue collar space, and there's not such player in the space, and there's not much player who have the knowledge, who have the insights, who have the data in terms of what manpower sector especially. But to get to that data, you need to have the marketplace. You need the marketplace. You need the you need because that's how the data comes in, right? You need to have the service providers. And so once we have established that, then it's all about moving into a SaaS, because the SaaS makes sense in terms of onboarding and speeding up the process. And once you have the SaaS obviously feeds in a lot more data. And once you have a lot more data, then you're able to do a lot into demand simulation and supply forecasting and all of those things. So I would say it's a natural progression, but again, it depends upon the client. If the client wants a SaaS software directly, it's an easy sell to like sell them. But if a client probably does not understand the SaaS software as much, but they understand that they need people, because that's their criteria. They understand that they need a people, they need to diversify their workforce, and so they want to get access into certain countries which they have not been able to get access to, or they want speed in terms of deployment, because a lot of these legacy players out there take a lot of time in terms of onboarding the candidates, or bringing in the candidates and doing the entire process, because the entire process which they do is manual at the end of the day. A lot to do with Excel sheets and WhatsApps and a lot of other technology. I mean, there's not much technology actually. It's a lot of manual, a lot of handwritten work also, and Excel, and probably WhatsApp and email communication going back and forth. And so it's an extremely fragmented experience, and as a result there's delays in terms of onboarding, let's say 300, 400, 500 people on a monthly basis, right? And yeah, so when it comes to speed, the client understands speed in terms of onboarding. Let's say candidates which takes about 2 to 3 months, which are being onboarded in 30 days. That's a significant time difference from the start to end.
But Samuel, if that is the problem statement, then why not sell the solution to the existing recruitment companies? Why to create a separate process of hiring and then establishing the entire piece which is already there? If that is the problem statement.
So as I mentioned, it's not exactly what we are tackling. Like I mentioned, the grander vision is bigger than what the burning need is in the market, and depends on the burning need is. But yeah, we currently do not sell to recruitment agencies as such, because one is we are like direct enterprise clients is typically our customer ICP profiles. Recruitment agencies are not really our customers. I mean, there is a possibility, like I know there is a there it is probably a way to like get our products across, is to sell to recruitment agencies as such, but we tend not to do that. One is for ethical reasons, where we don't want to sell to recruitment agencies as such. Two is on the grander vision, and probably the more important point is on the grander vision, which is basically we is progressing to a SaaS, progressing to a data analytics software. That's our vision, and the route to go get there is having large enterprises as our clients, having digitizing their recruitment workflow, and having all that data from demand side and the supply side, and being it's also very important to be connected to the end user rather than being connected through a broker through to a demand side, because when you're connected to the end user, you learn a lot, and that learnings are very important, and especially if there are things which are not happen from a candidate perspective. If, for example, if there are things, and if there are things which needs to be addressed, I think it's very important for those things to be addressed, and having that right end-to-end contract is I think important, and that's probably why we have not chosen that. I mean, not probably why, it's the reason why we have not chosen that.
So then moving on, Samuel. So what are your plans for fundraising? Any fundraising happening soon, or you've already done?
So yeah, we have been very resourceful in terms of how we have used or we have run this business. Even yeah, I think also, so we went through Techstars New York and the Techstars Accelerator New York. We yeah we were able to raise capital also at that point of time, but right after the Techstars New York, we in fact got a term sheet, and which we didn't get into. We didn't feel like we should get into it, and that was also something which I would say, which was probably not a very easy time, because that is the time when Silicon Valley Bank fell. The interest rates are very extremely high, and I mean it's still high, but that was a peak point. And also there were a lot of challenges. Yeah, SBB, FTX, as well. Yeah, cash became expensive for VCs, and so they were not funding, and that's the time when we also received the term sheet as well. But yeah, we just decided to not raise at that point in time, and we are actually breaking even and profitable by a small amount, and we look to grow in a certain way, and not probably like burning a lot of money as
So
well.
what was the reason to reject the term sheet if you got? It was a particular term or something, or the valuation was not right? What was it?
I don't think so. In terms of valuation, valuation at the very early stage, I believe there are so many terms out there, and valuation is probably not the most important term. And when it comes to raising capital, there are so many terms out there which is probably more important. And I guess the most important piece, especially when you're building a impactful business and serving the lives of many people, I think the value aligned investor is very important, because you're bringing somebody as a partner to your organization, and so there should be alignment in terms of your vision and in terms of your goals.
So you need to tell us what was the miss. What was the you are going around about it. You have what was the reason for the
Yeah,
gap?
so I would say the value alignment was the reason why it was not.
What does value alignment mean?
Value alignment means the kind of growth, and so I'll give you an example. You mentioned about the recruitment agency, and we do know that we can hack growth faster if we open it up to recruitment agencies, because we're empowering them by giving them the technology
Yeah.
to speed up, and that's a very fast growth, because then there's so many recruitment agencies, and you rightfully mentioned that, right? But obviously, we can grow like that, but that kind of that affects what our vision is
They
from
basically wanted you to shut the current way of doing and focus into the, because that's the same thing clicked to my head. If you want to scale,
yeah, exactly. So the way in terms of scale is being done was a different way, but I didn't align to that, and so I don't think you should take capital which are not value aligned, and kind of sell your soul. And then what is
any
the reason for building a business such as this, right? So
US VC or Indian VC? As you US,
it is a USDC, yeah.
tell us a little bit about your Techstar experience. How was it?
I think it was really good. I think I do believe that it was really good because I'm a first time founder in a tech business. After my Emirates experience, I quit my job and built a digital business, and I was doing a typical digital business. I mean, it's a great business, but at the end of the day, it's not a startup business, and so it's a different way in terms of how the business is being done and all of those things. But the whole reason to why I built that business is to start Huntr, to kind of bootstrap it at that point in time, because it's very difficult to like raise money on just an idea alone, and especially if you're a first time founder. And so at that point in time, that was my way in terms of building Huntr. And then it came to a point that Huntr required my full focus, so I shut down that business and then fully moved into Huntr and focused completely on Huntr. And I think that when you are building a startup for the first time, if you're a first time founder, joining an accelerator is very, very good because it gives you the insight on how the game is kind of played, right? Because it is a game at the end of the day. And so you understand the way the different ecosystem partners, how they work, like for example how investors work. If it's a VC, what motivates them, what incentivizes them, what the reasons to why they invest. And if it's the other ecosystem partners out there, how the why and what incentivizes them. And also, they will polish your deck, they will polish your pitch, they will get your starting with your elevator pitch. They will work on your elevator pitch, they'll work on your deck, and they'll work on your data room and your materials, and you just keep pitching until you get really good at it. And then they open up a wide network of mentors, investors, and then then you're at that point in time, you become basically very good at it. And then so you get access into a lot of network, and especially being a first time founder, you may not have the kind of network. And this is probably my advice to somebody who's starting out a tech business, is to go into, it's a significant advantage. You go into an accelerator, you learn how the startup game is being played, and then you get polished in terms of how you work, especially on the fundraising side, but also on your product. Like I got a lot of improvement on my product, I got a lot of improvement in my sales process, I got a lot of improvement in team building, in terms of culture, in terms of like metrics and what type of metrics to put, all of those things. So they give insight into all your insights of the business, and also like on your fundraising as well. So I think that's very important.
One insight you want to share with our listener, which just blew your mind?
That's very difficult to pick because there's quite a lot which is out there. Which
Something which you felt, wow, you know, that's how it is. Something which just, stayed with you.
I think for me, the most important piece, I would say, especially people when you're out there looking for fundraising, is, and if you genuinely build a good business, and if you're building a good business and you got your basics and the foundations right in terms of building the business, you shouldn't be the whole dynamic of an investor relationship and your relationship changes, where you don't need the investor needs you. And that mindset, I think, is very important, because you're basically building a really good business, and you know that it's gonna become a big business, and so the investor needs you to make money. And you're basically putting the work, their money to work, right? And so you shouldn't be from a perspective of, I need an investment to like kind of grow, and I need to, or I will die type of a mentality. If you're in that mentality, I think that that's the wrong mentality, and then you shouldn't be raising capital. You should be focusing on building a business at the end of the day. So I would say that I would probably leave it that, and then a lot of things come out from that.
But that's a very key insight. I totally agree. It has to be, because the other way around, it's always a struggle when you're pitching, if you're thinking the other way around. So, but
Yeah.
that's that's quite insightful. Thanks for sharing, Samuel. And yeah, I mean, it was really wonderful talking to you, Samuel. And I think I can go on and on. It's an interesting segment in space and what you are building. But Thank you so much for your time. Anything you want to share from your perspective? Anything, could be anything random, or you can just tell your dog name, some anything.
Um, well, I believe a lot of people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs or who are entrepreneurs are watching this show. And so what I would leave with is, the most easiest way to go about this is if to build a business which is easy and to sell that business and you get a track record because of that, and you go on to building a more complex business, and you're able to get attract a lot more resources as a result of that. And so probably the easiest way to go about it is copy something from the west, and then they have done a good job and they've got a very high valuation, and so you're able to piggyback on that. And if it's something which is easy to build as well, you're able to fast track in terms of scaling and eventually like doing a good job at selling it and all that. But I would challenge that, and I would challenge to kind of take quest or take be more mission driven and take things which make an impact, like a very large impact, to especially communities around, and which helps people. It's probably not the logical way to go about things, because you want to start with something easy and then build that track record, and then go on to more complex and more harder problems. But I would challenge that, because at the end of the day, also building a business needs to be, or building a startup needs to be something more than, or drives you more than making money. And so I would challenge the listeners to build things which makes a very significant contribution to the society. And so that's the legacy which you kind of leave with, right? So I'd leave it that.
Very well said, Samuel. Thank you again. Thank you so much for your time. It was such a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the success.
Thank you, Ashish. It's a pleasure to be here on this platform, and thank you for the opportunity. Take care.